"Scan complete, Captain," reported Science Officer Diana Wells from her station, fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that illuminated her focused expression. "The alien vessels employ some form of crystalline technology we've never encountered. Energy signatures suggest weapons capabilities approximately 30% more powerful than our primary defense systems are rated to handle." Captain Reyes nodded, maintaining her composure as she studied the tactical display. The 7 Zephyrian vessels had arranged themselves in a perfect heptagonal formation that seemed almost ceremonial in its precision. Too perfect, too rehearsed. It reeked of a species that had grown accustomed to encounters going exactly as anticipated. "Thoughts, XO?" she asked, turning to Commander James Harrison, her executive officer. Harrison, a veteran of the Proxima conflict who had seen humanity's first hostile extraterrestrial engagement, stroked his salt and pepper beard thoughtfully. "They're positioning like predators who've never been challenged, Captain. That formation leaves blind spots at these coordinates." He highlighted several points on the tactical display. "Either sloppy or overconfident. Neither is good news for us." Lieutenant Wilson's console emitted a soft alert. "Captain, they're attempting to access our communication systems. Not through standard frequencies. They're trying to infiltrate our computer core directly." "Mr. Patel," Reyes addressed the ship's cybersecurity specialist, "how's our digital immune system holding up?" Lieutenant Noah Patel's dark eyes gleamed with professional pride. "Our adaptive firewalls are not only blocking them, Captain, but we're collecting valuable data on their infiltration protocols. Quite sophisticated, but fundamentally based on sequential logic. Our quantum encryption makes us practically invisible to their scanning methods." The bridge fell silent as a strange vibration rippled through the deck plates. Several crew members winced, touching their temples as if experiencing sudden migraines. "What was that?" demanded Reyes, noticing the momentary discomfort among her crew. Dr. Mitchell's voice came through the comm system. "Medical Bay reporting an unusual neurological phenomenon, Captain. Something's attempting to interface with our limbic systems, specifically targeting the amygdala, the brain's fear center. It's subtle but unmistakable." Lieutenant Commander Olivia Spencer, the ship's TENOP psychologist, abandoned her usual reserve. "They're trying to frighten us into submission, Captain. It's a sophisticated form of psychological warfare. The Zephyrians must have evolved advanced telepathic capabilities or developed technology to mimic such abilities." "Well, they've never met humans before," Reyes said, a small smile playing at the corner of her mouth despite the gravity of the situation. "Our minds don't exactly follow universal patterns." Outside, the lead Zephyrian vessel began to emit pulses of brilliant azure energy that expanded in concentric rings toward the defiant horizon. As each wavefront made contact with the human ship's shields, it created cascades of shimmering interference patterns. "Their energy signature is changing," Wilson reported, brow furrowed as he analyzed incoming data. "They're cycling through frequencies, testing our defensive capabilities. Classical probing strategy." Captain Reyes rose from her command chair, straightening her uniform jacket as she made her decision. Humanity had prepared for this moment since they first looked up at the stars and wondered who else might be out there. First contact scenarios had been simulated countless times, but reality, as always, refused to follow the script. "Open a direct channel. All languages, all frequencies," she ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves before this dance gets any more complicated." As Communications Officer Wright prepared the transmission, Reyes addressed her bridge crew. "Remember your training. We represent not just the defiant horizon, not just the United Earth Navy, but every human who ever dreamed of this moment. Let's make first contact with dignity. And if necessary, show them exactly what humanity is capable of." The neural pressure intensified as the Zephyrians increased power to their psychic intimidation field. Throughout the defiant horizon, crew members experienced varying levels of discomfort, but human neurological diversity proved an unexpected advantage. What debilitated some barely affected others. "Fascinating," Dr. Mitchell muttered, studying her medical displays. They're targeting emotional regions universal to most sentient species, but human brains are too individualized for their broad-spectrum approach. Lieutenant Reynolds is practically immune due to her unique neural architecture, while Ensign Cooper needs medication to function. On the bridge, Captain Rice received continual updates as her vessel's artificial intelligence compiled data on the alien technology. "So they've conquered species using fear as a weapon," she said quietly. "What does that tell us about their own psychology?" Lieutenant Commander Spencer's eyes lit up with professional interest. "It suggests they may be highly susceptible to fear themselves, Captain. Species often weaponize what they most understand or dread. Historical precedent on Earth showed similar patterns in psychological warfare techniques." Meanwhile, in the engineering section, Chief Engineer Morgan and his team were dissecting the Zephyrian energy signatures with methodical precision. "They're using some kind of crystalline amplification matrix," Morgan said, his hands covered in holographic data streams as he manipulated three-dimensional schematics. "Similar to our quantum resonators, but significantly more efficient. If we recalibrate our shield harmonics to match their resonance patterns." His second-in-command, Lieutenant Grace Hudson, was already implementing the adjustments. Diverting power from secondary systems. Shield modification in progress. Throughout the ship, human innovation was proving its worth. Unlike the Zephyrians' rigid hierarchy, where all decisions flowed from command centers, the Defiant Horizon operated with disciplined autonomy. Each department adapted to the threat in their domain without waiting for central orders. In weapons control, Lieutenant Commander Jackson had identified a pattern in the Zephyrian shield modulations. "They cycle through 7 distinct configurations, Captain. Each corresponds to one of their member species' energy signatures. They're harmonizing their defenses with their biological patterns." "Is there an exploitable weakness?" Rides asked. Jackson's tactical mind had already formulated 3 potential strategies. "Yes, Mom. Their transitions between configurations create microsecond vulnerabilities. If we time our weapons' pulses precisely, we could penetrate their defenses without actually having to overpower them." Outside, the Zephyrian ships continued their intimidation display, energy fields pulsing in complex patterns designed to overwhelm primitive nervous systems. Commander Xylos observed the human vessel with growing confusion. "Why aren't they responding appropriately?" he demanded. "Increase the field intensity by 30%. Science Officer Trell's compound eyes flickered with concern. "Commander, our readings indicate their ship contains multiple species. Their neural patterns are chaotic, inconsistent. Some regions of the vessel show high stress indicators, while others register casual alertness. It defies classification." "Impossible," Xylos replied. "Their vessel is clearly of singular design. They must be a singular species." Tactical Analyst Prell's voice held a note of unprecedented uncertainty. "Commander, I believe they are indeed one species. Their biological signatures share common markers, but their neurological responses suggest a level of individualism we've never encountered. It's as if each human is a distinct evolutionary branch rather than a standardized unit." The Zephyrian Command Center fell into uncomfortable silence as this implication sank in. Their entire strategic doctrine was based on predictable, uniform responses from target species. But how does one intimidate a species whose members each experience fear differently? Aboard the Defiant Horizon, Captain Rice sensed the shift in the alien approach. Their psychic field had begun to fluctuate, probing different frequencies as if searching for the right key to unlock human compliance. "They're adapting," she noted. "So must we. Lieutenant Rodriguez, prepare your drone squadron. Let's show them something truly unpredictable." The electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the Zephyrian flagship's systems had been precisely calibrated, strong enough to demonstrate human capabilities, but carefully modulated to avoid permanent damage. It was a surgical strike, not a brutal assault. Commander Xylos staggered as emergency lighting bathed the command center in a sickly amber glow. Status reports flooded in from across the vessel, all confirming the same bewildering truth. The humans had disabled their non-essential systems with pinpoint accuracy, while leaving life support and primary power intact. Such precision, Sub-Commander Vex whispered, mandibles trembling. They mapped our entire command structure from a passive scan. Xylos turned to his tactical display, which flickered unreliably. Status of our weapon systems. Functional but targeting arrays are compromised, reported Weapons Officer Drek. They specifically targeted our targeting systems, Commander. Nothing else in the weapons matrix was affected. The implications were undeniable. The human vessel could have crippled their flagship completely but had chosen not to. It was a demonstration of capability wrapped in a message of restraint, a concept foreign to Zephyrian military doctrine. Aboard the Defiant Horizon, Captain Reyes received confirmation that their message had been received. The Zephyrian vessels had ceased their aggressive posturing, their formation loosening slightly. Excellent work, Mr. Jackson. She commended her tactical officer. Clean hit on their command frequencies. Lieutenant Commander Jackson nodded, his dark features composed despite the tension. Thank you, Captain. Their system's architecture is surprisingly accessible once you identify the pattern recognition algorithms they use for security. They protect against brute force intrusions, but seem to have no concept of subtle electromagnetic infiltration. It's as if they've never encountered an adversary capable of finesse, observed Lieutenant Spencer. Their entire defense doctrine assumes overwhelming force as the only threat. Lieutenant Wilson's console chimed with an alert. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Standard communication protocols now. No attempted system intrusions. Progress. Reyes noted with satisfaction. On screen. The main view screen flickered to life, revealing Commander Xylos. The alien's four-eyed face was difficult to read, but the rigid posture suggested a mixture of caution and wounded pride. Human vessel. Xylos began, his translated voice carrying undertones of controlled shock. Your response was unexpected. The Zephyrian Collective acknowledges your defensive capabilities. Commander Xylos, Captain Reyes replied evenly. The United Earth ship Defiant Horizon acknowledges your message. We responded proportionally to your warning shot. Had we interpreted your actions as a genuine attack rather than a demonstration, our response would have been significantly different. The unspoken implication hung in the vacuum between the vessels. Had the humans perceived a true threat, the Zephyrian flagship might now be drifting powerless. In the Zephyrian Command Center, Science Officer Trell was rapidly analyzing the human electromagnetic pulse that had disrupted their systems. Commander, their technology operates on principles we haven't encountered before. They've developed methods of energy manipulation that our sensors classified as pre-spaceflight capabilities. Explain, Xylos demanded. Their hull composition suggested primitive metallurgical development. Trell elaborated, but the energy signature they deployed exhibits quantum entanglement properties our sciences only theorized 50 cycles ago. They appear technologically inconsistent, advanced in some areas, rudimentary in others. Sub-Commander Vex leaned forward, eyes fixed on the image of the human captain. Or perhaps they deliberately disguise their capabilities, Commander. A strategy we've never needed to consider given our historical supremacy. Commander Xylos contemplated this disturbing possibility as he prepared his next communication with the humans. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something unfamiliar creeping into his tactical calculations. Uncertainty. The drone squadron deployed by the Defiant Horizon moved with uncanny coordination, each unit following distinct yet complementary patterns. From the Zephyrian perspective, it appeared chaotic, a swarm without order. Yet every movement served a strategic purpose, mapping Zephyrian defensive reactions while simultaneously creating a protective screen around the human vessel. Lieutenant Rodriguez guided the drones with subtle gestures within her holographic interface, her neural link allowing her to process incoming data and adjust tactics in real time. Captain, The Zephyrians are attempting to establish a predictive targeting solution for our drones. Their algorithms seem dependent on identifying repeating patterns. Give them none, Captain Rice ordered, a slight smile playing at her lips. Rodriguez nodded, implementing randomization protocols that made each drone's movement truly unpredictable. Deploying quantum uncertainty matrices now, their targeting computers are going to have a headache. Across the void, aboard the Zephyrian flagship, tactical analyst Prell was indeed experiencing the equivalent of a migraine. The holographic displays showing the human drone's trajectories refused to resolve into comprehensible patterns. This defies all established combat doctrine, Prell stated, compound eyes dilating in distress. Each unit operates independently, yet collectively they maintain perfect defensive coverage. There must be a central coordination point. Commander Silos studied the display with growing concern. Identify the command drone and neutralize it. That's the problem. Commander, Prell admitted. There isn't one. Each unit appears capable of autonomous decision-making, while simultaneously supporting the objectives of the others. It's as if they're cooperating rather than following commands. The concept was almost unthinkable to the hierarchical Zephyrian mind. Their entire civilization was built on clear chains of command, with each individual fulfilling their predetermined role without deviation. On the bridge of the Defiant Horizon, Lieutenant Wilson monitored the Zephyrian vessel's energy signatures. They're powering up secondary weapon systems, Captain. Reading multiple targeting attempts against our drone squadron. Let them try, Rodriguez said confidently. Each failed targeting attempt provides more data about their weapons' capabilities. Captain Rice nodded appreciatively. Classic human strategy, Lieutenant. Learn by doing. The Zephyrians fired a series of precision energy bursts, attempting to eliminate the human drones. Of 37 shots, only 2 connected, an unprecedented failure rate for their advanced targeting systems. In the Zephyrian command center, stunned silence reigned. Their technological superiority had been an unquestioned fact for millennia. Yet these humans, with their seemingly patchwork technology, had rendered one of their primary tactical advantages nearly useless. How? Commander Silos finally demanded. How are they anticipating our targeting algorithms? Science Officer Trull's voice was subdued. They aren't, Commander. Their movement patterns are genuinely random. Our systems require pattern recognition to establish targeting solutions. Without patterns, we cannot target effectively. Xylos finished, the implications settling like a weight on his shoulders. Meanwhile, the human communication broadcast continued to repeat across all frequencies. Each repetition represented an opportunity for peaceful resolution, but also demonstrated the humans' patience and confidence in their defensive position. Aboard the Defiant Horizon, Chief Warrant Officer Thompson reported from the weapons bay. Railgun platforms fully operational, Captain. Kinetic strike packages loaded and ready. Acknowledged, but hold fire unless directly ordered, Rise responded firmly. Our drones are making our point quite effectively without actual weapons deployment. First Officer Harrison leaned closer to the captain's chair. They're reassessing us, Alina. You can almost see the paradigm shift happening in real time. Good, Rice replied. The sooner they recognize we're not to be trifled with, the sooner we can establish actual diplomatic relations. As if in response to her words, the Zephyrian vessels began to adjust their formation, shifting from an offensive posture to a more neutral arrangement. The first indication that the aliens were beginning to comprehend they faced something unprecedented in their long history of galactic dominance. The communication channel between the vessels hummed with tension as both sides processed what for the Zephyrians was a revolutionary concept, a species negotiating as equals despite apparent technological disparities. Lieutenant Thomas Wright, his Georgian accent causing fascinating distortions in the Zephyrian translation matrix, continued elaborating on Earth's cultural diversity. Our vessel alone carries crew members from 37 distinct Earth nations, each with their own histories and traditions. Our chief engineer grew up in scorching deserts, while our navigation specialist was raised in Arctic conditions. The Zephyrian cultural specialist, a tall, willowy being named Elzur, appeared visibly disturbed by this information. You mean to say your species deliberately maintains cultural division? This is inefficient. Captain Reyes stepped forward. We call it diversity, Specialist Elzur. Humanity found strength in our differences long ago. Each culture provides unique perspectives, problem-solving approaches, and adaptations to different environments. In the observation chamber adjacent to the communication suite, Lieutenant Commander Spencer and Dr. Mitchell monitored the Zephyrians' biological responses to this exchange. Their neurochemical readings are fascinating, Mitchell whispered. Every time Wright mentions cultural diversity, their stress hormones spike. It's as if the very concept causes physical discomfort. Spencer nodded. Their society appears fundamentally based on conformity and hierarchy. The idea that a spacefaring civilization could embrace internal differences rather than eliminating them challenges their entire worldview. The conversation shifted to environmental adaptations when Elzur inquired about humanity's home planet. Lieutenant Emma Parker, the xenobotanist, joined the discussion to explain Earth's biodiversity. Our world contains at least 8 major biomes, she explained, displaying holographic images of Earth's varied landscapes. From tropical rainforests to polar ice caps, from ocean depths to mountain peaks, humans have adapted to survive in all of them. The Zephyrian scientists exchanged glances of disbelief. How can a single species evolve such adaptive range? One asked. Our member races each evolved in specific environmental niches. Parker smiled. We didn't evolve separate physical forms for each environment. Instead, we developed technology, cooperation, and cultural adaptations. Same species, different solutions. Commander Xylos, who had been observing silently, finally spoke. This explains much about your vessels. Unconventional responses. Your species thinks fundamentally differently than any we have encountered. Different, not necessarily better, Captain Rice replied diplomatically, though everyone present understood the evidence suggested otherwise. As the conversation progressed, Lieutenant Wright received a private message from Lieutenant Commander Spencer on his neural interface. Their social structure shows signs of extreme specialization. Each individual appears genetically optimized for specific functions, with minimal overlap in capabilities. They literally cannot comprehend our adaptability because they've engineered it out of their own species. Wright acknowledged this insight with a subtle nod as he continued the cultural exchange, carefully selecting Earth traditions that highlighted cooperation across differences, concepts he now understood would seem revolutionary to the Zephyrians. On the Zephyrian command vessel, Science Officer Trell was conducting his own analysis. Commander, I believe I understand their evolutionary advantage now. The humans developed on a world of such extreme environmental variability that adaptability itself became their primary survival trait. While our member races specialized for specific conditions, they generalized, maintaining the ability to adjust to nearly any situation. Commander Xylos contemplated this with growing unease. The collective had encountered thousands of species across their sector, categorizing each according to their level of specialization, and thereby predicting their behavior with reliable accuracy. But humans defied categorization. They were simultaneously primitive and advanced, aggressive yet restrained, unified yet diverse. They are chaos embodied, he murmured, yet function with remarkable efficiency. We have much to reconsider. Chief Engineer Alexander Morgan hunched over a holographic display of the Zephyrian propulsion system, his weathered hands manipulating energy flow diagrams with practiced ease. Around him, his engineering team worked with focused intensity, each specialist applying their unique expertise to different aspects of the alien technology. Look at this, Morgan said, highlighting a pulsing node in the schematic. Their fold space initiators operate on a completely different principle than ours. We compress space ahead and expand it behind. They're creating localized dimensional inversions. Lieutenant Hudson peered at the display. That's why their energy consumption is so high. They're brute-forcing their way through dimensional barriers rather than working with natural space-time elasticity. Morgan nodded, eyes gleaming with the excitement of discovery. Exactly. It's like comparing a battering ram to a lockpick. Different approaches, same result. Captain Rice had arrived at engineering for a first-hand update. Can we integrate any of their techniques with our systems? Morgan straightened, rubbing his lower back. Already on it, Captain. Lieutenant Dawson is reconfiguring our dimensional sensors based on their detection methods. Should increase our fold space navigation precision by at least 18%. 18% from a few hours of observation. Rice marveled. Imagine what we could learn through actual cooperation. Throughout the Defiant Horizon, similar scenes of rapid adaptation were unfolding. In the communications bay, Lieutenant Wright and his team had already modified their universal translators to account for the unique subharmonic tones that carried emotional context in Zephyrian speech. Their language relies heavily on frequency modulation to convey intent, Wright explained to his team. What we initially interpreted as aggression was actually formal diplomatic protocol. They express respect through what sounds to human ears like threatening undertones. This revelation had immediately improved communication between the vessels, reducing misunderstandings that could have escalated tensions. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Commander Xylos received increasingly disturbing reports from his analysis teams. The humans have already adjusted their shield harmonics to counter our scanning frequencies, reported Defensive Systems Specialist MREF. They identified and adapted to our probe patterns after only 3 cycles of exposure. Science Officer Trell added, more concerning. Commander, they've modified their communication protocols to better interface with our systems. They're learning our technology at a rate that defies our developmental models. Commander Xylos stared at the data streams, searching for some explanation that fit within the collective's understanding of species development. Could they have stolen technology from another advanced civilization? Perhaps they're merely implementing pre-existing adaptations. Negative, Commander, Trell responded. Our scans detect active innovation, not implementation of established protocols. They're creating new solutions in real time based on minimal observation of our systems. Sub-Commander Vex, who had been silent until now, spoke with uncharacteristic hesitation. Commander, I believe we must consider a disturbing possibility. What if their apparent technological inconsistencies are not weaknesses but advantages? Their mixture of advanced and seemingly primitive approaches may represent evolutionary pathways we abandoned millennia ago. The implication hung in the air like a physical presence. The Zephyrian collective had achieved its technological supremacy through rigid specialization. Each member race developing specific aspects of technology to perfection, then integrating these specialized systems. It was efficient but linear. The humans, by contrast, pursued multiple technological paths simultaneously, creating a patchwork of solutions that, while sometimes less elegant, demonstrated remarkable flexibility. Their adaptation rate exceeds our defensive reconfiguration capabilities, Mrev finally admitted. If hostilities were to escalate, we would be unable to maintain our technological advantage beyond the initial engagement. Commander Xylos felt the weight of 7,000 years of Zephyrian military doctrine crumbling under this simple observation. A species that could adapt faster than you could attack represented a fundamental threat to everything the collective had built. Sub-Commander Vrax's attack represented everything dangerous about Zephyrian supremacy, arrogance born of millennia without serious challenge. His vessel, the inevitable dominance, broke formation without authorization, accelerating toward the human ship with weapons systems fully powered. The collective does not negotiate with pre-ascension species, Vrax declared over an open channel, deliberately bypassing Commander Xylos' authority. These humans will learn their place in the natural order. Captain Ray's response was immediate. All hands, defensive positions. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, execute containment protocol Echo. Minimum force, surgical precision. The Defiant Horizon's response unfolded with choreographed precision. As the Zephyrian vessel launched its primary attack, a devastating energy beam capable of splitting small moons. The human ship deployed its specialized defense field. From the perspective of the watching Zephyrian fleet, what happened next appeared to defy physics itself. The human vessel didn't attempt to evade the attack or absorb it with conventional shields. Instead, a shimmering lattice of energy expanded around the beam, capturing it, then redirecting its force in a harmless spiral that dissipated into space. Energy diffusion successful, reported Lieutenant Sarah Winters from the Defense Systems Station. Ripple field technology functioning at optimal parameters. We've neutralized 97% of their attack energy without damage to our systems. Aboard the Inevitable Dominance, Sub-Commander Vraxt stared in disbelief at his tactical display. Impossible. Maximum power to forward batteries. Fire all secondary weapon systems. The Zephyrian vessel unleashed its full arsenal, a barrage that would have overwhelmed most planetary defense systems. The human response came not from their main vessel, but from the drone squadron that Lieutenant Rodriguez had strategically positioned during the earlier standoff. Each drone targeted specific weapon ports on the Zephyrian ship with precisely calibrated kinetic rounds. Microscopic projectiles accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. No explosions, no energy beams, just the elegant application of physics. One by one, the Zephyrian weapon emitters went dark, their delicate focusing mechanisms shattered by impacts too small to trigger shield responses, but powerful enough to cause catastrophic internal damage. Lieutenant Commander Jackson coordinated the defensive operation with calm efficiency. Drone squadron reports all targets neutralized. Rail platforms standing by for second phase response if needed. Captain Rice nodded. Hold position. Let's see if they've gotten the message. The Zephyrian vessel continued its approach, now on a collision course with the Defiant Horizon, a final desperate gambit by a commander unable to comprehend defeat. They're attempting a ramming maneuver, First Officer Harrison reported, his expression grim. Mr. Bradley, prepare the Maesier for a focused burst on their engineering section, ordered Captain Reyes. Disable their propulsion system only. Lieutenant Bradley's fingers danced across his console. Maesier targeted and configured, Captain. Minimal collateral impact to adjacent systems. The human vessel fired a single, precisely modulated beam of microwave energy that passed through the Zephyrian shields as if they weren't there. Another technology the aliens had never encountered and thus never defended against. The beam struck the alien vessel's propulsion system with surgical precision, exciting the crystalline matrices that powered their engines to the point of temporary breakdown without causing a catastrophic overload. The Inevitable Dominance suddenly went dark, drifting helplessly in space, its momentum arrested by secondary tractor fields deployed by the human drones. Across the Zephyrian fleet, a stunned silence fell as the implications became clear. The humans had completely neutralized one of their most advanced warships without destroying it or harming its crew, demonstrating not just superior tactical capability, but a level of precision and restraint that spoke of profound technological sophistication. Commander Xylos broke the silence with an order that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. All vessels, stand down offensive systems. Open diplomatic channels. The Zephyrian diplomatic party moved through the Defiant Horizon's arboretum with an air of subdued wonder. Grand Emissary Zol paused before a hybrid plant that Lieutenant Parker had developed, a cross between an earth orchid and a flowering specimen from Proxima Centauri. You created this deliberately? Zol asked, compound eyes reflecting the iridescent petals. Your species mingles genetic codes as casually as we might combine alloys. Parker nodded, her hands gently supporting the plant's delicate stem. Genetic adaptation is fundamental to our approach to new environments. We don't just visit worlds, we learn to belong to them, to integrate what they can teach us. Science Officer Trell, part of the diplomatic contingent, made notes with obvious fascination. This philosophy extends beyond biology to your technology and social structures. You adapt rather than impose. Captain Reyes, who had been quietly observing the exchange, stepped forward. It wasn't always so, Emissary Zol. Our history contains many dark chapters where we attempted to conquer rather than adapt. We learned, through painful experience, that adaptation offers more lasting success than domination. The diplomatic tour continued to the ship's combat simulation chamber, where Marine Sergeant Marcus Reynolds was leading a training exercise. The Zephyrians watched in fascination as human warriors practiced combat techniques from dozens of Earth cultures. Everything from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to Krav Maga to traditional Maori fighting arts. Each fighting style developed to address different threats in different environments. Reynolds explained, demonstrating how a technique developed for desert warfare differed from one created for jungle combat. By maintaining this diversity of approaches, we ensure we're never limited to a single solution that an enemy might counter. Commander Xylos, who had joined the diplomatic party after securing his fleet, observed the training with newfound respect. Your species prepares for conflict by embracing many paths rather than perfecting one. It seems inefficient, yet the results speak for themselves. Efficiency isn't always measured in linear terms, Commander, First Officer Harrison replied. Redundancy and diversity create resilience. A single perfect solution fails catastrophically when countered. Multiple good solutions adapt to changing circumstances. The tour concluded in the ship's memorial hall, a solemn space dedicated to human exploration history. Holographic displays showed vessels from sailing ships to early space shuttles, alongside monuments to missions lost and lessons learned. This may be the most important room on our ship, Captain Rice explained to the visitors. It reminds us that every advancement came with a cost. We honor those who sacrificed so we could reach the stars, and we remember the mistakes that cost lives. Grand Emissary Zol studied the displays with evident surprise. You commemorate your failures alongside your successes. This is unexpected. How can we truly learn without acknowledging where we went wrong? Rice asked simply. As the diplomatic party prepared to return to their vessel, Science Officer Trell approached Captain Rice privately. I must confess something, Captain. When we first encountered your ship, I categorized humans as a Class 3 pre-ascension species, primitive, predictable, easily dominated. I have never been so thoroughly incorrect in a scientific assessment. Rice smiled. Classifications can be limiting, Officer Trell. They tell us what something is, but not what it might become. When the Zephyrians departed, Commander Xylos paused at the airlock, turning to Captain Rice with a formal gesture that their cultural specialists had identified as indicating profound respect. The Zephyrian collective has existed for 7,000 cycles, he said. In all that time, we have categorized, studied, and often subjugated thousands of species. Today, for the first time, we encountered one that categorized us in return and found us wanting.